Hello Year 3, I am so pleased to tell you that I have seen some plans for some really exciting, fantastically creative and intriguing stories that all of you have sent in. Um, Everyone's story is different, everyone has their own character, and almost everyone has followed the Story Mountain structure really well, which means if you stick to your plan and we continue with our writing project, your story is going to come out being fantastic. So well done for your hard work so far. As you can probably guess, today we're carrying on from our beginnings of our stories onto the middle. So let's go through our lesson checklist of what you're going to need. So first of all, Jade and Indigo, as you did not join our writing lesson yesterday, you do not need to do this, just carry on with your work from the Amber video. If you have already started the writing a story yesterday, you're welcome to carry on with it today, but otherwise there's no obligation. Everybody else, please make sure you have your story plan ready. In a moment, I'm going to show you how I've set up my workspace, and hopefully you can ensure that you also have space for your writing and space for your plan and space for your brainstorm. So make sure you've got your story plan out. If you haven't got it, go and get it and then come back to video. As well as your story plan, you need to have the beginning of your story. I've got mine right here, the beginning that I wrote yesterday. You're going to need that because you're going to be carrying on writing. If you haven't finished the page, you're going to be carrying on writing on the same page, or you're going to be keeping them together so your story flows all together as one. Now, if you've got your plan and the beginning of your story, what you need to do is, on the same page as your beginning, if you've got space, just leave 3 lines, do an underline, and write today's date and the LI for today. So you're going to be carrying on the same piece of paper if you can. If you can't carry on from the same piece of paper, you can start a new piece of paper, but keep them next to each other so that you can look at your beginning as you start doing your writing for today. So this is my setup at home. As you can see on my screen, I have my plan ready, so I can remind myself of what structure my story is going to follow. And then here I have the beginning of my story that I wrote yesterday. You can see it's one whole page, and another page actually finishes right at the bottom, so I don't need to continue my date and LI on this page because I don't have any space, so I've just started it on a new page. But if you're like halfway through the page, you can just leave 3 lines and then write your date and LI underneath. Okay, pause the video and do that. And now you should be ready for the lesson with your date and LI on a piece of paper, your pencil ready, and all your documents in front of you. So, as I said before, today we're going to be carrying on with writing the middle of our story. But before we just go straight away and start writing things down, remember that before you write each section of your story, it's a really good idea to brainstorm what kind of words and phrases you're going to be using when you're writing. That way, when you're writing, you don't have too much to think about and you can focus on other things like your handwriting, your spellings, your conjunctions, and your punctuation, like using your full stops and commas correctly. So, let me recap. Before I want to start writing my middle, I need to remember where I got up to when I was writing my beginning. So if I check my piece of paper here, the last bit is just when it says, to everyone's surprise, as soon as the tear landed on his skin, the blood vanished. His skin was healed. But how? The boy stared at Alia. Wow, he said, you're magic. So I've already described the setting, I've already described the character, and I've just done the build-up where Alia's just discovered that she's got this power. I probably need to add a sentence about Alia realising exactly what her power is. I've left it on a little bit of a cliffhanger because the boys just said you're magic. So I'll need 1 or 2 sentences to describe why what her power is, the fact that she can actually heal people with her tears, just to make that really clear. And then I'm going to be going on to the middle. So you can actually see my middle here. The problem that happens is there's going to be a coronavirus outbreak in the story. So I need to think about what's going to happen, how is Alia going to find out there's a coronavirus outbreak. Maybe she'll see something on the news, maybe one of the teachers will come and tell them that that's what's going on. Then her reaction is that she needs to get to hospital as quickly as possible because she knows that she can heal people with her tears. She wants to go and help everybody. But she has to persuade everyone she has a power because probably all the teachers are going to say, no, you need to go home, you need to stay safe. So how is she going to persuade everyone? So that's going to be what happens in my middle. So the problem and then her reaction of going around persuading people, the teachers, to take her to the hospital. What I've done here is a little brainstorm, and for my middle, my brainstorm isn't so much about description because I already did a lot of description in the beginning of my story, but in the middle there's normally a lot of action, a lot of things happen in the middle, which is why in the middle I want you to focus on brainstorming some powerful verbs. And if you do want to brainstorm some description, try to make the descriptions about the actions that are happening in the story. So we're going to need to be thinking about adverbs, we can still be using similes, and all different types of powerful verbs that are going to make our story really vivid. So I've already come up with a few verbs and descriptions that relate to the actions that's going to happen in the middle of my story. For example, when the coronavirus outbreak happens, I might need to use the word spread to talk about the fact the virus is spreading or has spread already in the community. Collapsed, maybe someone gets ill and they collapse and they have to go to hospital. Then I've got a few words that explain how Alia moved in her reaction. I've put dashed, raced, rushed. These are all words to convey how quickly she was moving, because obviously it's a very urgent situation. Then I've got a few descriptions about how she was feeling or how she was doing these actions. So I've got some adverbs and I've got some different types of verbs too. So I've got the word desperately, because I'm sure that she would have been acting very desperate. Begged, because she was really trying to persuade everyone to go to the hospital. Hoped, I'm sure she was feeling hopeful or trying to hope that she would be able to go. Prayed. I've got this phrase, with all her might. I actually magpied that. I think I read it, and someone from Seacole class wrote a story once, and we actually put it up on the class board of WOW work, because I really liked that phrase, with all her might. And then frantically, another adverb to describe how she was doing all of these things in the story. Now you've seen my brainstorm, pause this video and have a go at brainstorming some of your own powerful verbs and action descriptions to use in your story. Make sure to refer to your plan, and you can write your brainstorm on a piece of scrap paper. It doesn't need to be on your lined paper. So just on a spare bit of paper, pause the video and write down your ideas. If you've unpaused this video, it means you've already written down your brainstorm and you're ready to find out how to use this in your writing. So, when I'm writing my story, I'm going to keep an eye on my plan to make sure I'm following each step of the story as I've planned it out, and I'm going to try and include some of these words or think about using them in my description. Remember that your middle needs to follow on directly from your beginning. So at the end of my beginning, Alia's in the playground with this boy. So that's where I need to start my middle of my story from. I need to finish off how does she end that conversation with the boy before I describe what happens with the coronavirus outbreak. So I'm going to sit and write this now. Remember to write on alternate lines. And then in a second, I'm going to show you what I've come up with. For me, it's going to take about half an hour, but for you, it's going to start now. It was then that Alia realised that the boy was right. Although it had never happened before, Alia's tears seemed now to have developed healing powers. Alia was just thinking about this and helping the boy off the floor when Mr. Monroe burst onto the playground. "All children into the hall," he commanded. Once they were all in the hall, Mr. Monroe explained that there had been an outbreak of a virus called COVID-19. Alia recognised the name. She had heard reports on the radio that morning that the virus was spreading through London. It sounded very serious. "I'm afraid that we need to send all children home for their own safety," said Mr. Monroe. "Your parents and guardians will collect you soon." A shocked murmur ran through the hall. Alia had an idea. "I can help," she said. "I have healing powers." Everybody except the little boy from the playground started to snigger. "I'm not crazy, it's true," called Alia desperately, trying to make eye contact with Mr. Monroe. But he was too busy talking to the school nurse. Then, without warning, Miss Patel collapsed. The hall erupted into panic. Children started crying and screaming, and someone yelled, "She's got the virus!" Alia rushed to Miss Patel's side, praying with all her might that she wouldn't be too late. When Alia drew close, Mr. Monroe started to tell her to step back, but Alia waved her arms frantically. Mr. Munro let her approach, and she knelt down beside Miss Patel, trying with all her might to cry. A few pearly tears landed on Miss Patel's unconscious face. Then her mouth twitched. She was cured. "What just happened?" asked Miss Patel, waking up. Alia looked intently at Mr. Munro. "See, I have healing powers. Now will someone please help me get to a hospital?" she begged. He nodded his head, still in shock. So that was my example. Now it's time for you to have a go. Write the middle of your story on your lined paper, carrying on from where you left off in your beginning. Remember to write on alternate lines, and do not continue right to the end of your story. Just write the middle. Try to focus on the quality of your writing and stick to your plan as much as you can. So pause the video now and have a go at your writing.